in Telford, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and 25 minutes from here. And I have with me my 10-year-old mare, Valencia. She's a Morgan, so she's pretty cool. She's not a new horse to me. I've had her for about 3 years, but she is newer coming through, and this is the second year for her at the fair. So she's just kind of learning the ropes, and I like to allow her to see different sights and different things. The arena's a little bit darker than what it was earlier, so I'm just letting her get acclimated to the shadows and the things in the arena at the moment. So when you're bringing along a horse, I've been doing this for about 25 years. I'm a professional trainer as well as a clinician. I've written about 8 books. I do a lot of teaching and a lot of just kind of getting people inspired by horses. They're really cool. When you have horses in your life and they kind of fill your life up and give you great things, it's wonderful to be able to share that. This is probably one of my favorite modes of doing anything for my job. I love to teach and I love to be out demonstrating and doing different things like this. So this is really cool. And I've probably done this fair for about 7 years. I think it's my 7th year. So it's neat to be able to come back each year. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to actually have you guys help me a little. Valencia is wearing a bridle, right, with a bit. And what I would like to get to the point of doing with her is to take this bridle off and ride her in just the neck rope. Okay, so what the significance of that is we're always striving for lightness and unity and a connection and a partnership and good communication with horses. So as I kind of bring her through and make her more of my performance horse, it's kind of fitting that I do it while I'm in this environment, because being here is a lot harder for her. I could do it a million times at home, but when I bring her out into a situation like this, there's a lot of different things here that she's seeing. So it's important that she focuses mainly on me and that I can keep her attention with me. And I'm just going to kind of go through the stages of setting her up for it. If I feel like she's ready for it, we'll do it. If not, it's okay too. So the reason why I'm kind of bringing her along rather swiftly or quickly is if you guys haven't seen me here in prior years, or if you have, I used to ride a little paint mare named Phantom, and Phantom actually passed away 3 weeks ago. So I had her for 17 years, and it was a hard loss. It was very quick, very sudden, but she would come and do all of these demos, and I had her to the point for 17 years of a partnership that I could ride her bridleless. We do musical demos and do a lot of things, but what happens with us as trainers, or I have 7 horses at home, but there's main ones that I use for different things, and to bring a horse along to that caliber takes years and years and years. So it's a lot of exposure, it's a lot of getting them used to things, to make sure that that trust and that bond keeps building. It's the same as you with relationships with people. It's the exact same thing. So I want to make sure that Valencia trusts me, that I don't overface her too soon, but that I also build her confidence and show her things that she is capable of doing, because a lot of times you have to show them. So it's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I set up an exercise. It's called the never-ending circle, and I love color cones. I use them all the time. So it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. And how I'm going to kind of incorporate these cones is I'm going to make it and kind of push her through this to the point where she knows how to do this little tiny exercise. She's comfortable with it. She feels all of my other aids. Okay, so when you're riding a horse, it's important that you note that you have aids on your body. Your seat bones are one aid. Okay, if you would lift your knee or lift your thigh on the bleachers, you're going to feel something like a knuckle digging into the bleacher. That's your seat bones. You have the right one and the left one. Okay, they tell the horse to steer. They also help the horse to change direction. So horses can feel your hip motion and they can feel your pelvis change. So if I were to lift my left leg up like this and I were to add my rein pressure, she's going to turn left because she's going to follow that rein pressure and follow my seat bone. If I do that to the right, she's actually going to follow it to the right. Now obviously I can't ride around like that. That's not really pretty to watch. Okay, so I'm going to make it so that it's invisible. I'm lifting my left leg a little bit so she feels my left seat bone. I'm lifting my right leg a little bit and feels my right seat bone. You can see me doing it. Okay, now as time goes on, that would become invisible. You wouldn't even see it. But that's one mode of communication with her. One thing that the horse can't ignore is the bridle and the bit. Okay, so when we're asking for the horse to change direction or to bend or flex, so it's called. So if I want Valencia to look at you all, that would be left flexion, Okay, if I want her to look over in this direction, where she came from the barn, that would be right flexion. Okay, now when we start adding leg and shoulder into the mix, you get a change of direction. Okay, so pretty simple. Now what we're going to do is we're going to break her body down into 4 pieces, because I like to think of their body like a train car. Okay, so you have head and neck are your first train car. Shoulders and front legs are your second train car. Belly and back, what I'm sitting on, third train car. And the last part is the caboose, which would be the hind legs and the hips and the hind feet. Okay, now we don't really necessarily want any of it to derail. Okay, so as a trainer, I want to make sure that she's bending equally, but she's also straight. Okay, so that's one of our hardest things to get, because horses by nature want to be stiff. And we need them to bend and flex throughout their body, right? If somebody forces you to touch your toes and you can't touch your toes, does that feel good to you? You know, so you want to make sure that you over time flex and manipulate the muscles so that the horse gets more supple or soft. So as I'm asking her to flex and bend, what you'll notice is that her body starts to form like a C arc. It'll look like this from the head to tail. When I do a circle, or when I go around the never-ending circle, I want just a little bit of bend and flexion. Because when I take this off, I'm going to lose some of that. So I need to make sure that I have it with the bridle, so when I take it off, I can still help and sculpt and shape her. Okay? So we're going to start. I'm just going to get into it so we can get right to it. I'm going to ask her to trot. And basically this exercise, you're just going in between a cone, and out and around. It looks like a flower if you just see the pattern laid down on the ground. But this is pretty basic. I'm just asking her to keep the same rhythm. And rhythm is something that's important with horses. You don't want to speed the record up or down, right? Do you ever put a record, well, we don't listen to records anymore, but do you ever listen to music and the record would skip and the song speeds up or it slows down? I'm trying to eliminate that, okay? If you know what a speed ladder looks like what a football player or what an athlete trains through, when you lay them down on the ground, they run through them real quick, and it's just really quick footwork. Basically, if I laid a speed ladder down on the ground, I want her steps to equally be placed in it. I don't want her to skip over. Does that make sense? So as she's going around, I want her to step in the ladder equally all the way around this pattern. Okay? Now bear with me, because it's cool what this turns into. Horses are super smart. They're very receptive. She's taking this all in. She's trying to figure out which part of my body, so I'm helping. And I'm basically, think of me having ice skates on. I'm going to skate to the right, skate to the right, skate to the right, skate to the right. See how she's following that and turning? It's almost like a split to the right. If I change it and go left, split to the left, split to the left. My left skate would be in front of my right one. Okay, now I'll make that big. At first, I always say in the beginning of horse training, everything's big and ugly. Then it gets really small, pretty, and precise. So that same exercise would look like this. I'm doing the same thing. If she wouldn't turn, I'd say, hey, you missed it. Let me help you. Okay, and then I'd go back to, can you do it off the little bit? Hey, you missed it again. Forward. See right there, that was kind of interesting, right? She quit because there were 2 things that she had to concentrate on at once. She didn't keep her forward and her rhythm, and she didn't change her direction as crisp and as swift. So I had to explain to her, keep going forward and change direction. So it's really good when she's actually asking me questions, because a lot of times horses, sometimes if the owner doesn't take control or the owner doesn't be the pilot, the horse takes over. Okay? And a lot of that's really not directly what you want, because they are 1,000 pounds. So you really don't want to be on a runaway. Most of the time, and what the danger becomes in what I'm about to do is the fact that I'm losing my brakes. Okay, so I'm really kind of taking my hands off the steering wheel and driving with my knees, basically. Okay, so you're taking away one of the biggest things that you can make happen. So if I pick up on this, whatever I want to happen will happen. Okay, so when you take that away, I have to rely on all my secondary aids that she knows and understands them. Okay? So we're going to speed this up a little bit so you can kind of see the whole essence of how this is going to work. So by putting her on circles like this, horses kind of love symmetry. They love flow. They love freedom to move move in the same direction. So I'm not asking abruptly to change direction a lot. I'm just continuously making a circle. Now, what Valencia has around her neck, I love to invent products. I've invented a couple. This is called the Circle Aid. Okay, so what this is it's really padded and really stretchy. So it's meant to hold along with my reins at first, and it kind of stops me. So if I face you guys, this is my stopper. I can't go any further, which means I can't beg. Okay, so if I say this is all you get, now I have to use the rest of my aids to say, get over there. And as soon as she does, I release that pressure. Okay, so that's it. Basically, it will prevent me from going, please get over there. Okay, because I want the end result to be invisible. Remember, I don't want you to see what I'm doing. Okay, so me as a performer or as a trainer, I have to get our communication so light and so in sync that you never see what I'm doing. Most of the time, when you see an awesome rider, you're like, wow, that was great. Or it looks really, really, really easy. They've worked really hard to get that, right? Like any good athlete, they put in 20 times more practice. All the practice that you don't see in front of you is when the really good entertainers or the really good riders are really putting in the hours behind the scenes when nobody's applauding and nobody's clapping and they're out there sweating and putting in hour after hour after hour. So on average, in my younger days, I would ride 8, 9, 10 hours a day, easy. Okay, so with anybody with a regular job that has, or a sport that they're really good at, you put in a lot of time and effort. That's just on yourself. But imagine with an animal that has its own mind, its own muscling, its own thoughts. They get up and they're not always happy. They're grumpy too. We have days where I'm like, good God, you can just go back in your stall. So they come out with moments where they don't want to perform, they don't want to give you their best, and that's just part of it. So me as the trainer, I have to pull out work ethic, and that's very hard to do. So years ago, somebody said to me, you put really a big signature on horses, and I said, really, what is it? Because I've always wondered what it is myself. And she said, every horse you touch has an amazing work ethic. Like, they love to work for you. And I thought that was really cool, because that's a good signature to have. When you have a partner that is really willing to work with you, that's awesome. Same thing in marriages, same thing with kids. Everything pretty much coexists with horse training and relationships. It all is the same across the board. So as we go through this, I'm just going to ask her to trot. I'm going to use both the rein and the neck aid to help her understand what it is I'm looking for. Okay, now one thing I will explain to you, because I need brakes, there's a 3Q system for this, because it's not always reliable. It's like having a backup chute. Okay, I'm going to ask her to well this way by picking up on this neck rope. That's one. The second is going to be actually a reverse of what forward Q is. So when you want a horse to walk, it's usually both legs. I'm going to do the same thing to back up. Okay, so this is how smart they are. She can figure out that a forward Q also means back up. And the only thing that's different is my intention. That's it. Okay, so they can feel your intention. They can feel the change in your body position. It would be the same as you sitting there on the bleacher, and if you had a teapot in your belly button, and you tip the teapot forward, that's go. If you keep it in neutral, that's wait. And if you bring the teapot back, that's whoa. Okay, it's that slight little tiny change. You probably can't even see me do it. This is go, neutral, whoa. Okay, now in a big way, it would be go, neutral, whoa. Okay, so you might see me do it bigger if it doesn't connect. Okay, and that's going to happen, right? So she's trying to figure out, as much as I'm trying to figure out, we need to connect. Okay, so if something disconnects, it's like your phone ringing and you don't pick it up, and don't pick it up, and don't pick it up, and it goes to voicemail. Okay, and that person calls you back again, and you're like, oh, voicemail right away. Calls you back again, oh, voicemail right away. After they call you about 10, 15 times, you'd be like, what? Right? So that's kind of where we're at with connection. It's got to happen. So however we get there, I have to find a way to explain to her, pick up the phone, listen to what I'm asking you for. Okay, so as we come around, we're going to just do this a few times here. Whatever we do one way, it's important that we do the other, so I'm just going to ask you to come around to the phone. noisy, you'll actually help me because she needs to learn that. Okay, don't feel like you just gotta sit there. If you see something you like, cheer for her. She loves it. And plus, it makes me think that I'm entertaining and slightly. Okay, yes, please clap. There you go. All right, so now we're going to go to the next step, which is I'm just going to leave my reins here just as a back up, but I'm just going to go to my neck rope. And I'm going to go through the same exercise, but I'm trying to get precise. So I'm going to go in between, and out and around orange. Now I'm going to say it out loud where I want to go, so you guys know that I'm not just going through the motions and aiming and getting somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to go out and around green, then I'm going to come in between yellow and orange, in between yellow and red, and out and around blue. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a trot between yellow and green. I'm going to go through yellow and orange, and I'm going to come out and around red. Yellow and blue, yellow and green, out and around orange. I'm going to stop in between red and yellow. She needs to keep her feet right in the middle. She blew it. She needs to back up. I'm going to tell her thank you for her effort. We're going to turn to the right slightly. We're going to pick up the trot again. I'm going to come out and around. I'm going to come in between yellow, red, turn left. Come in between orange, yellow, yellow, green. Come out and around blue. Come in between red and yellow and stop. All right, here we go. First time ever in public. Wish me luck. Ain't got no break now. All right, here we go. Green, yellow, yellow, blue, out and around red. By the way, did I tell you that she's freaking awesome? This horse is literally the coolest. She is going to be an absolute freaking superstar. When you get into horses, you get to ride a lot. I've ridden thousands, okay? And I'll tell you what. Woo! That's awesome, Zeke. I gotta tell you, when you get into riding a lot of horses, you pick and choose what you like and what you don't like. And I'm pretty picky. And she really does have the goods to be really, really great. You know, you've got a lot of basketball players, but there's only so many Michael Jordans, right? So you'll search for a while to find something that really has got the goods to do what you need them to do. And she's got it. Right? So she's got that little bit of extra star power that's just going to be really awesome. Oh, that was good. Woo! There we go. Yay, so good. Okay, so now we're just going to work on our stop and our back. Excellent. Walk forward, come to the right, because accuracy is so important. Good. Do you guys know why I train my horses backwards like this? Years ago, when I started riding Phantom was a little quicker. Like, she was just really, she could go from 0 to 60 in a matter of seconds. She was always a fast-paced horse. And when I would get out in front of a crowd, in my 20s, I'm a little older now, but when I would get out in front of a crowd, I'm like, yeah, no bridle, right? So sometimes I'd be in front of hundreds of people, and I'm like, here we go. And I would have to do things to music out in front of an audience, get a little nervous. Rightfully so, everybody gets nervous. So I'd end up at home practicing, and she'd be great. She'd keep her same speed, it'd be really awesome. She'd be just cantering so nice. And then we'd get to the point where we actually had to ride slower and she kept getting faster. And I'm like, this is horrible. Why does this keep happening to me? And I realized that my legs were telling her to go like half the time because I was getting so nervous that my legs would squeeze, right? So she thought that was go. So she'd look back at me all the time like, what are you doing? Why are you pulling back on me and telling me to go at the same time? And here I'm like, slow down, slow down, slow down. You're going too fast, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'll just reverse the cue. Okay, so I started going like this and tapping, which means you better run backwards. Okay, so that way, what Valencia will start to get is if she's going too fast, I actually wave her to a stop. Okay, so what ends up happening is I can control leg speed and not pick up on the neck rope. Okay, so I can start to ask her to come forward, come around, and if I wanted to get, like, let's say slower in between orange and yellow, good. Did you see that little stutter? And then I'm going to ask her to come forward, and I'm going to